Welcome to Doctrine and Devotion, a podcast exploring Christian faith and practice from a Reformed Baptist perspective. Don't steal my thunder.
My name
You're
is
stealing
Jimmy
it.
Fowler, elder candidate at Redeemer Fellowship.
And I'm Joe Thorne, lead pastor, lead host.
No, I don't know about lead host.
Yeah, lead. That's it. Quit looking at your phone. I can see you doing it. You're trying to provoke me because we're talking about anger today, and you want to see if you can push my buttons. That's why that's what you're doing.
No, someone just sent me a message.
I could see that.
Oh, okay.
How you doing, man?
I am doing good. Getting ready, you know.
All right, what are you doing?
Michelle, I just got a text
From?
my wife.
Okay, that's okay. You don't have to apologize for that, but you got to tell me what's up.
Someone took
So Jimmy made a purchase recently.
I did make a purchase recently.
And I was under the impression that you got permission to make that purchase.
No. There was no permission. No, I called afterwards.
Oh.
I called afterwards.
Did you leave a message or did you actually
No,
speak?
I was on the phone. I was just
Okay.
said, hey, remember how I was preaching and,
They gave you an honorarium.
They gave me an honorarium.
And then you used it.
I used it.
What's wrong with that?
And then some. That's
you
the
went
part.
over
And
the
then
honorarium. Yeah.
So, yeah, that was the...
So now she's like, what?
She's like, what?
And then you were like, well, when you contribute to the financial part, you can ask.
Say that.
No, you didn't?
No.
But you thought that, though. I could tell.
I have thought it. I have said it in the past, and I have paid the consequences
You've learned
for those comments.
You can't be that real.
Or ignorant. I can't be that ignorant.
That really ignorant.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. That's what it is. So, yeah.
All right. So now, are you centered again? Are you okay? Okay. Turn off your notifications so you don't get guilt tripped for
Got it.
spending.
No, this is a different message.
Okay, he's getting other messages.
Yeah.
All right. Nobody. I think people are tired
Of
of all the time we waste on the front end.
I don't know about that. Maybe.
I've got a couple of people saying like, "Hey man, what you guys like knock all that?" Even what that guy with the flat face. What's his name?
Oh, Jared Wilson.
Yeah, Jared Wilson. Yeah, he said something like, "I tried to listen, and you guys talked about who was whose podcast wife, and I turned it off."
Yeah, kind of like how I perpetually turn off your podcast. He turned off our podcast. I perpetually turn off his.
I never turned it on.
That's why it's perpetually off.
Oh, so you're not perpetually turning it off.
I turn it on and then I go, oh, it's just Jared.
You check every time. So it's still Jared.
It's still Jared. I'm off.
Still Jared.
Still.
It's like when you're flipping between radio stations. Like still commercials. Okay, go back to the other one.
That's kind of what I do. I'm like, oh, maybe it's Owen. Nope, it's not.
Yeah, nice try, Jared. All right, pick a fight with us. Jared's a friend. Jared's a friend. We love Jared.
When are you going to come hang out, buddy?
Yeah,
I miss you.
We love you, buddy.
I miss you. He's supposed to actually be in Chicago soon, I think.
Is he really?
Conference. Yeah.
You're probably gone on your second whirlwind trip around the world.
Yeah, there's the second one coming up, and then I got another one later on this year.
You know what? All that's making me feel angry. Let's talk about anger.
Why is that making you angry?
Because you're going to be leaving me.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
You knew that. You knew this when we entered into this relationship.
Okay, it's like you say, like, hey, I'm going to hit you in the stomach really hard. Okay, so I know you're going to do it. I'm still going to be mad when you actually do it.
Well, yeah, but you can't be mad at me.
Oh, yeah, I can. You punch me in the stomach.
No, if I gave you warning and said you knew what you were getting when you entered into the relationship with the fofo.
No, I feel like I walked into a room and there you were. You're like, hey, let's be friends. And I'm like, cool. And you're like, I'm going to punch you in the stomach. And I'm like, what? And then that was it. That's kind of how the whole thing went down.
But
hey,
no,
let's talk about anger.
Like
Nobody cares.
It's not like that. You know why it's not like that? It's because when I punch you, you say, please, sir, may I have some more?
Well, first of all,
you keep coming back for more.
I would use
the fofo.
better English, and I definitely wouldn't. I don't want abuse. I don't want to get punched in my soft belly.
That's not abuse. You had the joy of my relationship. Now, yes, our relationship has a great tension about it. And I like that about us. There's a give and take, and there's some anger. There's been times we've been mad with each other.
So how long have we been recording? Because we're going to have to tell people in the show notes they can skip all of this until like 10 minutes in, something like that.
Something like that. Who knows?
All right. So
no one cares about that. I ain't paying attention.
Good. We're talking about anger.
We're talking about anger.
Now, why we talked about joy?
Yes.
So we're talking about anger because like that's just the opposite. Like I guess joy, anger. Why don't we talk about that?
Well, I think part of it is because we do struggle with anger, and so part of this,
yes,
we struggle.
Well, as a royal we, but it's you.
Us.
Yeah.
The Jofo struggles with anger and
mostly.
Emphasis on the Joe. And so part of the podcast is, like we mentioned in the past, this is us processing what God is teaching us at this time, or even what we need to be learning.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that Joe's listening as he talks. Go, Joe.
I wasn't the one. I don't know what you just said. Yeah. So I am like sort of naturally an angry person. And why that is, who knows? Like you can trace it back to just like that's the broken sin in me or experiences or whatever. But sort of my default is, I guess I've described it to people this way. I don't have a dimmer switch. I have a toggle switch. So I'm either happy or I'm angry. And, and like I don't like have a lot of gray in there. And it's not like I'm like anymore punching holes in walls and raging or anything like that. But I did have a lot of problems like that back in the day. In fact, when Jen and I were being evaluated to be missionaries with the Southern Baptist Convention's North American Mission Board back in 2000, we had to do these psychological profiles.
Yeah, okay.
So you take this test, you answer it. And so Jen and I go and we sit down, and there's a psychologist sitting there, and he's like, so Joe, I can tell that you are an angry person. And I was like, not angry. What are you talking about? And he's like, I can tell that you're an angry person. I can even tell that the way you tried to answer these questions, that you tried to hide the fact that you're an angry person, but I can tell you're an angry person. I was like, get out of here. I get annoyed because people are stupid sometimes, but I'm not an angry person. And
I can actually see you talking like
Yeah.
that. I've been to restaurants with you.
Yeah. So, so I was like, I don't know. So we kind of moved past that. And then right after that, he starts talking to Jen, and he begins to subtly insult her in front of me. And it was basically he was saying something along the lines of, Jen, you read English literature because you are an escapist and you want to escape reality. You don't want to deal with the problems in life, and you try to get away. And I got a little aggro.
I would too. I would too if someone was talking down to my wife like that.
And then he looks at me like, gotcha.
Oh, he suckered you.
Yeah, he did.
But here's the thing, though.
Oh, yeah.
Any of us would have been angry. So that, you know what? That proves nothing. He's right that you're an angry person.
But I was, and honestly, for a long time, I really struggled with it, and I still like that's definitely in me. And by God's grace, the book that had the most profound impact on me was Quest for Meekness and Quietness of Spirit by Matthew Henry. Fantastic little book that has really God used a lot as it really elucidates Scripture and what meekness is to help me out quite a bit. But God's taught me a lot, but I still have to be very much engaged in the fight against that particular evil, because it leads to foolishness, it leads to sin, it leads to embarrassment.
Well, I mean, Psalm 37:8, right? Refrain from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not yourself; it tends only to evil.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's really. I know, like people want to say, like, well, but there's some anger that's good.
There's
right?
a righteous anger.
I can be righteously indignant, can't I? Okay, not you. I'm just
going
to say you can't.
Lord.
No,
you are not perfect and holy and perfectly just in your anger.
Now, of course, there is a righteous anger, and it is possible, and there are circumstances when you can be righteously indignant, but that is tricky. And
it's tricky. Sorry.
How tricky is it?
Tricky. Thank you. I thought maybe like you were like, I thought you were going to get angry at me for that.
No. I'm already angry. So yeah, people want to, okay, so we will admit you can be righteously indignant, but most of the things that you get angry about, and yeah, I'm talking to you listening, you're usually not righteously indignant. You're usually just kind of an angry jerk like me. When you get mad, you're getting mad because you're inconvenienced. You're getting mad because you're selfish. You're getting mad because someone is not measuring up to your expectations.
Yeah, that's right.
You're not getting mad because children are being murdered that are in the womb. You're not getting mad because of the corruption and the injustice in politics. I mean, maybe you are, but you can't excuse your general rage and anger as if it is somehow justified. Dude, we just saw this whole thing. We saw a guy raging out online,
you're bringing this
throwing the N-word around,
Yeah.
throwing the F word around, like not the FU word, the other word, losing his mind. And the dude's a pastor?
He was, I don't know, no, not a pastor.
He's not a pastor.
I don't believe he is. But the individual claims faith in Christ.
All right.
Is definitely, he struggles with, he's against Calvinism.
And black people.
And black people.
Apparently.
And he's a KJV only guy. That's the kind of guy he is. But yeah, I mean, a friend of ours had corrected his grammar, like lightheartedly. It's kind of like what Joe and I do with each other.
Yeah. Well, mostly like I do with you, but go ahead.
Because my grammar's horrible. That's true. And so But the guy in private message just started raging at him.
I mean, listen, Jimmy cannot. You can probably find it, but your eyes are going to be viewing really hard language. This guy, I mean, assaults this guy verbally. Now, I would never say that I was assaulted verbally. Like, I wouldn't really care. This was like aggressive, like the worst possible things you could say to a person.
I will shoot you in the head.
Yeah.
Type things.
Yeah.
And even, I don't know, worse, I would say. Like, because are you really going to shoot him in the head? But to say the words that he did towards a brother,
so that
one
guy,
of our brothers in faith,
that lunatic was
mocked me.
Yeah, well, Jimmy put a picture up online with the guy's profile.
And I asked the
You should not have done that. I would never have done that. I would never have okayed that if you would have asked me.
And I actually did ask you. That's the thing about Joe. But part of it was because I had wrestled with this anger. I had wrestled, and I don't assume that my anger was righteous, because I don't think that I had to really wrestle through that. I was really convicted, for my anger and for my heart, because what I didn't want to do was to pray for this individual. What I wanted to do was to punch the individual.
At least, yeah.
And so, I mean, I think people get angry, right? Like, and so you sit there and you talk about, a lot of times, I think Christians, we try to act like we are righteously angry.
Yeah.
Like we're angry. Even this individual is talking about being bullied right now. Like, that they're being bullied by all of us Christians. And so that's why he has a right to be angry.
Calvinists or Christians?
I think Calvinists, us.
Yeah, Calvinists. You said Christians. I was just making sure, because he still identifies as a Christian.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, bottom line is, okay, guy was angry. I don't know what he maybe. Okay, so he was angry about being corrected for his grammar.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's a dumb thing to be angry about. But let's just say I get angry at stuff that is fair to be angry about, and then I want to hurt that person.
Yeah.
Now my anger has led into a specific sin.
Yes.
Anger is dangerous like that. Anger generally does not just sit still like a good dog. Anger is off the chain and it's ready to go. So you might have something to be angry about, but you don't have the ability to control that anger as well as you might think. So it's really important to keep anger in check and to recognize that maybe 98% of the time our anger is not righteous.
Well, and even trying to avoid anger at all costs. I mean, Proverbs 19:11. Good sense makes one slow to anger, and it is his glory to overlook an offense.
Yeah.
So here it's the presupposition here is that you are being offended against, right? You have been offended. Someone has done wrong to you, but instead, like, be slow to anger, and the better posture is to overlook the offense. Now, I understand. Now you're going to go to the nth degree.
Yeah, you could.
You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't mean, I'll use this as an example. We've talked about it a little bit. Sexual abuse in the church.
Right.
That's not an offense to overlook.
Right. Yeah, so we're not, and listen, this is overlook insults to you.
Yes. Like Joe and I insult each other all the time.
But that's our love language.
Oh my goodness!
So we have, I think that it's, we should stand up for others. If I see someone else being insulted, if they're being pushed around, then I'm going to want to address it. Now, I have to make sure that I don't address it and lose my cool, but I'm going to do it. But when I'm being sinned against, or if I'm being insulted, it is just for me. It is good for me. It is appropriate for me to just turn away, turn the other cheek, and let it go. That one theologian said, Swift, shake it off.
Yeah.
Shake
Taylor
it off.
Swift.
Yeah, shake it off.
You know what? I actually feel really dumb that I knew that.
Yeah, this is not a good
honestly,
sign for either of us. Really.
That's not a good moment for either of us.
The whole idea of being slow to anger is the opposite of what is for most of us.
Yes.
Like my dad was a tough guy back in the day. Very loving, very affectionate, but he could handle himself.
Great father, great husband.
Yeah, great. And I only saw him lose his cool one time, and I thought he was going to kill somebody. I thought he was going to really hurt somebody. But he had a really long fuse. Like, he was super, super, like, long fuse, doesn't get mad, very patient. Eventually he lost his cool. Some guy really insulted him. But most of us are not slow to anger. Most of us are quick to anger. We're quick to talk. We're quick to take offense. And it's because, I believe it's because we hold ourselves in very high self-esteem.
I think it's, pride. Pride is what you're talking about.
It is at the heart of all of this. And I noticed years and years ago that, wow, God's teaching me a lot. I'm not getting so angry anymore. I'm able to control myself unless I'm driving.
Oh,
because then,
yep, I hear you.
I can't. I mean, I have a hard time understanding why people do what they do on the road. And I don't know who it was. It could have been a preacher on the radio. It could have been a book I was reading. I don't remember. But at some point, it became very, very clear to me. The reason you are so angry when people are driving slow, when people are doing X, Y, and Z on the road, is not because you are concerned for them or others. It's because you are being inconvenienced. They are not doing it the way that you would. And even if they're wrong, you don't give them the benefit of the doubt. You assume that they are being negligent or at least intentionally rude. And I really began to see, but my anger issues are entirely rooted in pride, a sense of very high inflated self-esteem. And I didn't think I had that kind of an issue, but it became very clear that I did. And that's why we're so quick to get angry, because we think that we are much more than we really are.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I know for myself, when it comes to anger and on the road, part of it is not just, it's a pride of being inconvenienced, right? Like, it's a pride of even thinking that everyone's out to get me.
Yeah.
Like, I think the worst of other people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where my judgmentalism comes into play. We talk about pride, but I think there's also a judgmentalism where we stand in judgment thinking that this person is worthy of condemnation and that we are just and right to condemn them.
Yep. Yeah.
We place ourselves in the place of God.
I think it was Jen that one time told me, I was like, what is this person's problem? They're driving up my rear end in the car. We're on the interstate. I'm like, what is going on? I'm trying to get out of their way. And I'm really annoyed that they're driving like this. Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Righteously, you were angry.
Yeah, I was like, hey. And she goes, Joe, maybe they're trying to get the wife to the hospital. Or maybe he has to go to the bathroom really bad like you do sometimes. And you got to get home real quick.
Well, because you only have two settings.
I can go.
And I am going.
That's it. Again, no dimmer, toggle.
This is how bad. This is how much we know each other.
There's only a toggle. Like right now, I can go, and if I don't go soon, I will be going. That's basically it. And so, the way that I think about this is really an issue for Christians, because this is one of the key areas in which the Holy Spirit and the fruit of the Spirit needs to come alive. Like in Proverbs 16:32, it says, "Whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city." I mean, think of the mighty men, think of the powerful, and think of those who can take a city. The strategy and the perseverance and the might that it goes into that.
Yeah.
Well, the person that's slow to anger is more than them, because now you're dealing with your heart. This is not a castle easily conquered. This is the deepest part of your brokenness. And so we're talking about this issue of self-control, and self-control is that final part of the fruit of the Spirit.
Absolutely.
So if this is an issue that is true of me, like, man, when my room when I was in high school, my room was filled with holes in the walls that I used to punch because I would get mad, usually because something wasn't working with my hair. It was back in the 80s.
Wait,
and now look what
you
happened.
had hair?
Oh, I had long hair. Yeah, it was nice.
No, you didn't. Stop it.
I did.
Stop.
And and all the mirrors were busted off my car because I punched all the mirrors off. I had like dents in my car. I was always raging out about stupid things. And as a Christian, it began to slowly subside. But I really didn't get to the deeper issues until later on in my walk. And what I've seen then is that, wow, I can't really do this on my own. It's got to be the fruit of the Spirit, self-control, enabling me to attack this issue head on through the means of grace and Christian community and all of that.
And I think that's important, like the whole aspect of self-control in that. I mean, Proverbs, what is that? There's Proverbs talks about a man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like, and like that whole imagery of being vulnerable to every attack.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the important thing here, is that when we when we are given into anger, when we lose all self-control, it can lead into a lot of other kinds of sin in our lives.
Yeah, and I think part of the strategy here in dealing with anger is recognizing who we are and what we deserve.
Yep, I like that.
Right. So I am a creature. I'm not the creator. I'm a sinful creature in need of mercy, deserving of condemnation.
Yes. Yep.
I am no better than anyone else. You begin to understand who you are, and then you begin to understand not just your place in this world, but that sort of humility, right? Rightly seeing yourself in light of who God is and others are. This rightly seeing yourself. So this humility gives birth to this spirit of meekness.
Yeah.
Right. And so in that book that I was recommending, Quest for Meekness and Quietness of Spirit, the author Matthew Henry says this, because for me this is really, really helpful. So think about the things that make you angry. Think about those things that push your buttons, right? It's another way to say it wrongly. Well, that's pushing my buttons. As if somebody pushed a button on you and now you have to react because that button was pushed, right?
Like they actively sought to do something to you.
He says this: meekness teaches us prudently to govern our own anger whenever anything occurs that is provoking. As it is the work of temperance to moderate our natural appetites in things that are pleasing to sense, so it is the work of meekness to moderate our natural passions against those things that are displeasing to sense, and to guide and govern our resentments. Anger in the soul is like metal in a horse, good if it be well managed. Now meekness is the bridle, as wisdom is the hand that gives law to it, puts it into the right way, and keeps it in an even, steady, and regular pace, reducing it when it turns aside, preserving it in due decorum, and restraining it and giving it check when at any time it grows headstrong and outrageous and threatens mischief to ourselves or others. It must thus be held in, like the horse and mule, with bit and bridle, lest it break the hedge, run over those who stand in its way, or throw the rider himself headlong. It is true of anger, as we say of fire, that it is a good servant but a bad master. It is good on the hearth, but bad in the hangings. Meekness keeps it in its place, sets banks to this sea, and says, hitherto thou shalt come, and no further. Here shall thy proud waves be stayed. So, he's saying like anger can be justified, but if it isn't controlled with meekness, you will lose. And it will destroy you. It will. Those waves will overcome the banks. That horse is going to toss you off. That fire will consume your life. So, I mean, I for me, that book helping me to understand who I am, what I need, what I deserve, because meekness accommodates the soul to every occurrence. Because if I know what I deserve, and if I know that God is good, and that this has a purpose. Like if I know that the guy cutting me off, or if I know that the person who is insulting me is only doing so in accordance with God's larger scheme of things, it slows me down instead of speeding me up to get angry.
Yeah, and I mean, I also think of like, as we're talking here, thinking of like you talked about God's anger and us deserving that wrath, and I keep thinking in my head the parable of the laborers.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's kind of going through my head often as I'm dealing with my anger, is I deserved the just wrath of God, but I received the grace of God.
And then what do you do?
I go and I condemn and look towards others.
Yeah.
When I should be kind of extending that same grace that we've all been received.
Yeah.
That we've all received, right? And that I don't do that perfectly. Like, right. I don't want to give that impression that...
No, but that's how it's supposed to work, right? It's like that, you ever see that thing where it's like that pay it forward thing where somebody at Starbucks will say, hey, I want to buy the guy's drink behind me. Come on, man, follow my line of thought. All right, so you're like, hey.
No, I'm following your thought, but I'm actually ashamed when you talk about it.
So the guy's like, hey, pay the guy behind me. And then that guy will go, oh, I'll pay for the guy behind me. And they see how it goes on for hours. So like 2 weeks ago, I was at, were you in the car with me?
I don't know.
So I was somewhere, and I pulled up to the window, and the guy's like, yeah, the guy in front of you, I think it was Dunkin' Donuts. Guy's like, yeah, the guy in front of you took care of it. I was like, sweet.
I do that every time. That's why I'm a little bit ashamed. In my head, I'm like, hey,
so terrible.
Hey, free coffee at Starbucks. Like the guy. Here's the part that gets me. This is where the anger comes up and my sin comes up. Is like the individual at. This is always at Starbucks when I go. They'll say, "Hey, the person in front of you paid for you. Do you want to pay for the person behind you?" And I think in my head, like, don't presume that I'm going to pay the person behind me. No, I will not be. Give me my drink.
By the way, they're going to get like 8 frappuccinos. The people behind you, like super hard to order expensive drinks. That's what they're getting.
Yeah, forget it. No, I just say, no.
You should at least like if they're getting water. You should do something.
That sounds even ruder.
No, but it's funny,er
I was doing that with Nick and Steve McCoy. Nick Batzig and Steve McCoy were hanging out.
Yeah, without me.
Without you. And so we're sitting there, and Nick asks Ian, the guy that works at Levita. Like,
oh yeah.
Hey man, can I get a glass of water? And he's like, sure. He starts walking away. I'm like, Ian, on my tab. Throw that sucker on my tab. And he walks in, and Nick's like, dude, that's so generous of you. And I'm like, it's free. It's free water. He's getting it from the tap.
It's tap water.
It ain't like you got bottled water. You didn't get the joke.
All right, man. So final thoughts on anger. As you're kind of looking at your life, looking at like at your kids, as you're thinking about the church.
Looking at kids, like I guess I see. Final thought. I could really see my anger not only come out in dealing with my children, but watching them be angry with others.
Yeah,
because they're just mimicking me.
Yeah, it's super convicting when our kids say something rude to each other, and we're like, "Hey, what? Oh shoot, that's what I said the other day." Right?
Oh yeah, that happens often. Like, I don't want to say some of the things my kids have said.
They say things like, "You spent how much?"
No.
That's things like that.
Oh man, no. They'll say things like, "Seriously?" I'm like, what? Why are you saying that to me? I told you go clean your room, and you go, "Seriously?" And I'm thinking, oh, I do that all the time.
Yeah, good example, dude.
Oh, yeah. I've been around your kids and some of the things that I've listened to Bonger.
Yeah, you threaten him.
He deserves a punch in the face.
Yeah, well, you were threatening him, so that's why he's
a righteous
anger. He's a little aggro towards you. I guess if I'm thinking about anger, the one thing that I just want to encourage people with is that anger is a poison most of the time. And it's like, a small amount of anger or righteous anger is potentially a good thing. But it quickly becomes weaponized,
yeah,
and
I agree.
it just bleeds this toxin into your spirit. I know from experience how it. Humility will either overcome your anger, or anger will leave no place for humility and meekness. And when that's the case, you are perpetually dissatisfied. You are perpetually unhappy. You perpetually lack joy. Angry people don't have lots of joy. Right? So just beware of that. Pick up this book, Quest for Meekness and Quietness of Spirit by Matthew Henry. It's a great little book. You can probably find it online to read. We'll link it in the show notes. Be sure to pick that up. I promise you. It's not a how-to. It's not going to give you 10 steps to stop being angry. It's better than that. It's more biblical than that. It's more theological than that. Pick it up, read it all the way through, and I am confident that you are going to be blessed by it.
You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Doc and Devo, or on Facebook /Doctrine and Devotion. You can head on over to the website, doctrinedevotion.com. There you can click on the sign-up page for our email list. You can contact us, or you can head on to the store and grab some great gear. Fresh pod every Monday and Thursday. Blog posts on Wednesday. Later.
Shine bright like a diamond.
What? For real, dude. Don't ruin these things.